Hello friends, it's Nancy from Astrology and Angel Mediums today with another pick a pile reading. So this is your opportunity to choose whatever pile you feel drawn to and then go check out the timestamps to go find the reading for the pile that you chose. So here we have pile 1, pile 2, and then pile 3. So I hope that you enjoy your reading. I'll see you where your reading starts. Have a good one. Hello, pile number 1. Thank you so much for joining me. Today, I'm going to be pulling the cards that we want to use and then kind of get an interpretation of what's been going on for you. So, let's see what the message is today. The Hanged Man, the Three of Rods reversed, the Page of Swords, the Six of Swords, and then finally the King of Pentacles. I feel like these cards have been kind of following me around lately. I'm going to kind of move those out so we have a lot of room. So I decided to use some of my smaller decks today. So I'll grab you. And we have Spring. What do we have here? Imagine. Decided to use different decks that I haven't used yet over here. We have Creation. We have White Buffalo, Calf Woman. And then Honor the Space Between, No Longer and Not Yet. And by releasing my past, I allow myself to move onward and upward. I do just want to mention, I do love all these like blues and purples and those kind of like softer colors that I'm noticing with a lot of the oracle cards that I pulled. So I would definitely say that maybe there's a lot of communication, a lot of maybe even like dreams, connection to higher guides, maybe trying to pay a little bit more attention to like your natural gifts and abilities and seeing how those things kind of are going for you at the present moment. So I'm going to start with the actual tarot cards that I pulled. So the very first one I got is going to be the Hanged Man, which is essentially just kind of telling you that maybe right now things feel a little suspended. Things may not feel like there's a lot of progress or momentum and movement. Maybe this is also a reminder that maybe there's something that is in a lot of ways having to make some sacrifices, having to kind of put pause on certain things. And I think that with everything that's been kind of happening energetically, a lot of us are maybe kind of waiting for something to happen in order for us to be able to see that momentum, to see that groove, to see the possibilities really truly open up for us in different ways. So right now you may just be feeling a little bit of this sense of I'm having to change my perspective. I'm having to really reflect on who I am, what I want, what I need, what that means overall in so many different ways. And so there's a little bit of it almost feels like a push and pull with the energy of this card. But it isn't to say that these are things that are outside of your control. I feel like the biggest thing here is that it's saying that you almost have to be a little bit of like a willing victim in some ways of being very receptive to the things that you're having to kind of observe from a different point of view and to change your mind on whatever it is that you've been kind of carrying at this time. Now, if we move on to the second card here, we have the Three of Rods reverse or the Three of Wands reverse. So this to me can just say that maybe there's been a lack of planning. Maybe it's hard to make plans. Maybe there's a lack of, again, kind of that, like you don't really know. There's a little bit of this sense of I'm just kind of waiting to see what's going to happen before I can kind of see what I need to do on my behalf and to be able to kind of move into the next thing. And so there's a little bit of this sense of just not seeing things really move along or not being able to kind of see progression or expansion at the current moment. So right now it just may feel a little bit blocked. It may feel a little bit like stagnant, like things are just really not getting that fire to really go the way that you want them to. So there is a little bit of maybe having to kind of wait on external forces outside of yourself in order to see and plan what it is that you want to do moving forward. It's almost giving me this sense of like, oh, I want to go out there and start a new life, but I don't really have any way of planning for it right now. I can't really, I like, it's almost like the desire for something new is there, but the actual momentum and the kind of like space to be able to plant those seeds has just not really rooted yet. And so right now, it just, again, kind of like the Hanged Man, where it just feels a little suspended, like you're just kind of waiting. Maybe there's some changes and sacrifices that need to be made in order for you to start to see some of that movement and that momentum really going for you. Now, for the Page of Swords, this to me can just signify that maybe you need to kind of really step into recognizing your personal truth, recognizing what you're thinking about, getting a little bit clear on what it is that you believe, what it is that you want, and being a little bit more receptive to that sort of energy, to not be afraid to kind of cut away from anything that you feel has been holding you back in some ways. And so the biggest thing with the Page of Swords is that there is this like sense of being okay with, sorry, there's like little fuzzies floating around. To me, this is really just kind of saying like, it's okay to set out and be a novice and be inexperienced at something, especially when it comes to communication and connection and kind of utilizing your voice in different ways. And so the Page of Swords to me is kind of giving me the sense of maybe there is something that is being presented to you, but maybe there's a hesitation because maybe you feel inexperienced or you feel like things are not really going how you would want them to go. And so there is a little bit of the sense of maybe you're holding back because for so long you weren't seeing that momentum and that movement, and now you're seeing something shift, but maybe it's not the way that you thought it was going to. And so maybe you feel like you're having to really cut away from a lot of different things. And the thing with the Page of Swords as well is that to me, it's a reminder of like re-empowering yourself and reconnecting to yourself in different ways. Now we move on to the next card. We have the Six of Swords, which to me is really a card of like allowing healing to really begin. It's a transitional card in a lot of ways. I feel like it's very much about maybe you need to go somewhere else that has a much more healing environment for you. This is an opportunity to kind of like get away from any sort of conflict, and being able to choose what it is that you want to really include in your life. When I think of swords, I think of, you know, truth, empowerment, justice, the mind, communication, connection, in so many different ways. And I think the Six of Swords is really just here as a reminder that maybe there's something here that is saying, hey, you have tried what you could. This is not really going the way that you thought it was going to. It's time to maybe find clearer waters basically for yourself, where you can feel a little bit more connected, where you can feel a little bit more grounded in your experience. I look at this card as one of not just like the healing element, but also that transition that I need to shift and move into something else and not just hold back. And finally, I have the King of Pentacles, which to me can just say that maybe you're really more focused on like the physical, you're wanting to focus on like the actual manifestation of the things that you want. So this is really about being solid in yourself, being very stable in what it is that you need, as well as being very aware of like the physical things that are going on, because Pentacles rules over the body as well as career and money and our worldly possessions. And I think the biggest thing here is that it's almost saying like, okay, what are you doing here? What is it that is going on around you? And how can you really dig into this experience in a way that feels much more stabilizing, much more grounded? If I were to even just look at these cards, is that maybe that there's an opportunity for a new way of life in a lot of ways, whether it's to, you know, kind of get away from the things that are no longer making sense for you and kind of transitioning into something that feels a little bit more stabilizing, a little bit more rooted and grounded in your personal experience and what it is that you really need. But right now, it's just feeling like there's not really a lot of planning or the potential to really figure out how you want all of this to look moving forward. So those are the tarot cards. Now let's talk about some of these oracle cards, besides all of them having kind of these bluey purples kind of going on with them. So this is the past. So I shine awareness and compassion on my past. And maybe this is kind of reflecting on the lessons from the Six of Swords, a feeling like you're wanting to heal and really transition out of old blocked kind of patterns. And I think that this is almost saying, like, just looking at it with that awareness, with that compassion, cutting away from anything that has maybe emotionally been very damaging in some ways, and then physically making that transition, I think will allow these other energies that have felt a little bit blocked really start to heal, really start to move, really allow you to kind of move into the next thing. So I think the past is maybe just a reminder that there are things that need to be released and surrendered, and to kind of move into something new. And I think it's funny that I also pulled this: by releasing my past, I allow myself to move onward and upward. So I think that both of these cards are kind of giving you this like sense of, hey, there's stuff that has happened that was outside of your control. Maybe there's things that even within your control that maybe didn't work out the way you anticipated, but it's time to release that expectation, to release that sense of obligation to still remaining in that energy, especially if you're wanting to kind of transition into something else. Now, spring, this is really just kind of reminding you to kind of pay attention to, like, what seeds are you planting? What sort of things are you focusing on? What are you trying to grow? Because spring is the beginning, right? It's when everything comes out of dormancy. It's when everything begins once again. It's when the trees and the flowers bloom. It's when, plants are, sprouting, and, the animals are coming out of, hibernation, and we see all of the little animals kind of coming out, all the new animals that are being born. And, to me, it's very much about honoring that cycle of renewal and refreshing, and giving ourselves an opportunity to maybe pay attention to what spring is in your life, whether that is, paying attention to what seeds you've been planting, what are you growing, how are you showing up for yourself, and being very receptive that in that newness, in that, that place of so much growth and so much change, we have to give ourselves a lot of grace in that, because we're not always going to know what seeds are actually going to take root and what's actually going to grow. And I think that by honoring the space, and I think it's funny that both of these cards really make sense, honor the space between no longer and not yet. I think this is very much a sentiment for spring. We are still currently in the spring season until the middle of July, when the summer solstice begins. And I think that this is kind of telling you, like, maybe you've been feeling like, oh, maybe I'm not making that much progress, or I haven't really seen things actually shift and change. And I think that this is a reminder to just, again, honor that space between what hasn't happened and what is trying to happen. So just let it be. Don't rush it. Don't let it be anything more than that. And I think that these go very beautifully together. Now, next to that, we have imagine, which imagine to me is really just letting you know that you need to reconnect to those dreams. You need to reconnect to that creative part of yourself that maybe hasn't really been able to be expressed in different ways. And I think by doing some of these like healing exercises within yourself of like releasing the past, allowing yourself to really move onward and upward by honoring the space between no longer and not yet, really utilizing your imagination by allowing yourself to kind of, again, catch the moon, so to speak, as we can see with the figure here. I don't know if you guys can see it, but it's a figure and it's like she's like almost fishing for the moon. And I think it's very much about capturing those big things inside of yourself, whether it's like what feels intuitively correct for yourself, what feels natural, how you're nurturing yourself, like, again, honoring your cycles and taking care of what you need when you need it. And I think the biggest thing with Imagine is that it's maybe asking you to look at that balance and start making choices with the universe and the world around you. Maybe you're kind of forgetting to prioritize your imagination and your creativity in different ways. And I think it's funny because then we have creation. So creation is just here as a reminder to connect a little bit more to what you're co-creating and how you're showing up. Now, this is from the Queen of the Moon Oracle, and since we are going to have a full moon this week, I think that it's a good reminder to just be very receptive to allowing that fullness to really reach its peak, whether it's all right, now I know what I want to create, so I can really start moving forward with some of my plans, lay out like the foundation, the groundwork for what it is that I want my life to look like moving forward, instead of being hung up on the things that have happened in the past or things that are no longer really connected to me. And I think that the creation card is also a reminder to just pay attention to what you need, pay attention to what's going on with you, and not doubt yourself so much as far as like what you feel drawn to do and how that speaks to you. Now, we have finally the white buffalo calf woman, which is about reverence. When I think of this word, I think it's very much about just being very mindful and respectful and honoring all of the things within yourself, whether it's the changes, whether it's the past, whether it's the things that are trying to grow. It's very much about just having a beautiful sense of acknowledgement and respect for what is trying to kind of happen here for you. And I think that maybe this is something that you have kind of forgotten in the process of just going through life and doing things. I think we all tend to kind of forget. And maybe it's just letting you know, like, hey, we have to have a little bit of reverence for everything that we've experienced and the things that maybe haven't worked out the way that we thought they were going to. Maybe it's an opportunity for you to reconnect on a deeper level with yourself and not question yourself so much about what it looks like and how's it going to feel and how's everyone else going to receive this sort of energy. So I think overall, this is just an opportunity for you to look at the things that maybe have been trying to change and look at the future with much kinder eyes, especially yourself, and kind of moving onward and releasing the things from the past that maybe you feel have been affecting the things that are happening to you or how they are happening at the current moment. And really look at your cycles and what you're honoring within that space and really showing up for that. And maybe make some time to be a little bit more creative, to, imagine something, maybe even if it's just like sitting with yourself and letting yourself daydream a little bit. I think having that respect for that creative process, I think, is also a really big thing with White Buffalo Calf Woman. So I hope that this made sense. Thank you so much for joining me, Pile 1. As always, I appreciate you. Let me know what you thought of your reading. Have a good one. Take care and stay safe. Bye. Hello, Pile number 2. Thank you so much for joining me. Let's see what the message is for you today. So I'm going to just pull some cards and then see what we get, and then also what else we have in store here. All right, so we have the 10 of Pentacles. We have the Hermit reversed, the Knight of Cups reversed, the 4 of Cups reversed, or 4 of Cups, and then the Tower. I want to pull one more, I think. That's not even. I thought I picked them out of here, but that's not one either. That's so funny. I was like, I looked through the deck and I couldn't find them. And that's not one either. Look at that. Maybe that's why I was supposed to pick all those. And then the Page of Cups. I think that's good. What do you guys think? I guess you can let me know what you think. All right. Yeah, I think I want those. And then I want one of these. Oh, that's really pretty. And then one of these. And then we have one of these. I like these colors together, though. I do like how I try to use all these different decks, and then sometimes they still have really beautiful colors that go together. That's nice. All right. And then we'll pull. Okay. When we shift our energy from fear to love, we find our way. And I release the need to prove myself to others. I do like that all these colors are so just like going together. There are all these little colorful colors going on, very bright, a little bit of the rainbow everywhere. So I think that's all the cards I want to pull for you, right? That's one of all of the decks. Okay, so let's look and see at what we have to begin with. So very off, or right off the bat, very off. That is my mind at the current moment, is we have the 10 of Pentacles. So to me, this is really saying that you've been very focused on hard work, dedication, building something, very much about being very like focused on what your life looks like, if that makes sense, in the sense of how your career is going. This is like dedicated hard work. This is like getting your rewards because of your dedication. And so to me, the 10 of Pentacles really talks about like this is the culmination of all of your efforts and all of the things that you've been doing. And so I think with the 10 of Pentacles, it is essentially a reminder that maybe you're ready to kind of move into the next thing. And as we kind of move into this energy, it can be a little bit challenging because it can feel very much like we're holding back in some ways. And I think with the 10 of Pentacles, it's almost saying like you've been so focused on the physical life that you've created that maybe there's something within that you haven't really been paying attention to. And I think that's why we have the Hermit reversed here, which I think is just kind of saying like you need to learn how to seek out your own wisdom a little bit. You need to start learning to listen to your intuition a little bit more because you've been too much in like the material physical world that maybe you're forgetting the spiritual parts of yourself or the intuitive parts of yourself, or to learn to have to like essentially listen to that inner voice and what you have kind of going on within. And so there is a little bit of this sense of maybe not really recognizing that you're a little disconnected. And so you've been too focused on the like maybe the physical manifestation of your life in a lot of different ways that it's maybe made it a little bit challenging to kind of reconnect to the spiritual lessons or the things that are kind of trying to take root here for you. And I think with the Hermit reverse, it's also a reminder that maybe you need to not be so focused on like staying stuck or stagnant in some way, whether that's with your current life, whether that's like with what you have going on. I feel like there's something going on here that is almost saying like there's a little bit of a disconnect between what it is that like you're trying to work hard towards and then also what maybe your soul needs at the current moment. Now, we also have the Knight of Cups reversed here. And I think that this is just, again, kind of saying there is a lack of creation. There's a lack of connection to the emotional aspects or the intuitive or even just the creative, where there's just a lack of imagination. Maybe there hasn't really been as much progress in certain areas, especially when it comes to the sense of fulfillment and happiness. Because when I think of the Knight of Cups, I think it's very much like this romantic kind of card that comes through. In a lot of ways, it's like, oh, I'm not receiving the messages and I'm not getting like the information that is like speaking to my heart right now. And I think that this is almost saying like maybe there's something here, whether it's like a relationship or a partnership around you that hasn't really allowed you to feel as connected as you would like or as grounded as you would like. And I'm only saying, relationship because we have the Four of Cups here as well, which is a card of like discontent and not really seeing what is being offered to you because you're so focused on like what you're losing. And I think with the Knight of Cups beforehand, it's almost saying that the Knight of Cups reverse, especially, it's almost saying like maybe there's been a lack of like that connection, that communication, that lack of movement and momentum that you've been looking for. And so there's a little bit of the sense of, I don't really know if this is what I want any longer. And I think going back to the 10 of Pentacles, that maybe you have worked really hard towards a specific goal. You've come to realize, I don't even know if it's something that I care about any longer and if it's even relevant to who I am at the current moment. And I think that's why we're getting the Tower here, which is funny because I think I pulled this earlier this week as well. And it really talks about that kind of like unexpected energy. It's lightning, right? It's lightning striking the tower, kind of knocking the figures off. And it's very much this like, breaking the crown off of the tower. It's almost saying like, this is that breakdown that is trying to happen to allow a breakthrough, to allow you to crumble those old paradigms that no longer make sense and that are ready to kind of, feel like this is it, that we're done with this. And so this being a major card, especially with the Hermit reverse, it's almost saying like you haven't been listening. You haven't been listening to your intuition. You've been a little disconnected. And so that's why you're not feeling this progress. You're not feeling this progression. You're not feeling that momentum and movement like you would need it to. And I think with the Tower, it's almost saying like, okay, that's it. You need to, you can no longer ignore this. You can no longer continuously be dissatisfied and disconnected and not allowing that sense of, I really love the things that are happening in my life. Now, having the Page of Cups, this can be a reminder that maybe you just have to be very receptive and open to not knowing what is coming and to just being a little bit of a novice, so to speak. And this is funny because I also pulled the Page of Swords for the previous pile. So I think that we're all kind of feeling very inexperienced, feeling a little bit vulnerable, feeling a little bit like, oh, I just have to kind of take a leap of faith and do something different, and kind of change it up and maybe do something that feels a little bit more connected to what I'm feeling and what I want and intuitively speaks to me in better ways. And so if I were to just kind of look at all of these cards, I think that there's just something, maybe there's a transition with the sort of work that you're wanting to do. Maybe there's even some partnership issues that have been coming to the surface that are finally ready for you to deal with, that may be very transformative, but also not the easiest to deal with. And maybe this is just a reminder that you need to start paying attention to the spiritual elements, the creative elements, the intuitive elements in your life, because you're lacking some of that. And so there isn't as much of a foundation with it. So maybe some of the things that you believe may be really like rapidly shifting right now, where you're just kind of like, oh crap, it makes sense. And it just feels like it's just clicking in. And all of a sudden you're getting like those epiphanies in the sense of, well, what have I been doing? I need to really do something different. I really need to move out of this like stagnation and this just like going through the motions and being so stuck in thinking that life has to look a certain way, or that it has to continuously be, how you've been doing it, so to speak. And it doesn't mean that anything that you've been doing is wrong. It just is not in alignment with yourself, is really what all of this feels like, is that it's almost like you're not listening to yourself. You're not trusting yourself. You're not moving with yourself the way that you should. And so now the universe is saying, we got to shift some things. So let's see what the message is on this card. This is the intuitive. Again, we get a lot of cups cards. So I'm definitely feeling this is very much about intuition. So I am tuned into the energy of those that I care about. So maybe this is about some of the relationships and connections around you, ensuring that you are also caring for yourself in this process and not being so caught up in what is going on around you and what you feel is a part of your responsibility. And maybe that's why I'm getting like this Tower card and this Chaos card. I feel like it's very much, maybe right now there's just so many different things going on energetically that intuitively it's hard for you to kind of focus. And maybe with this with the Hermit reverse and also this Tower card, I think that it's almost saying like it's really disruptive to you. So maybe you need to pay attention to where this chaos is taking you, because I like to think of nature as like organized chaos. If we really think about it, before humans started humaning, so to speak, and being very like out of sync with how nature grows and how nature lives. I think that it's very much like, being in this kind of organized chaos. And I think for a lot of us, especially in modern society and as modern humans, we don't really like disruptions and chaos and things that are outside of our control, without really understanding that we don't really get to control much of anything in life. The only thing we can control is how we react to the things that happen outside of our control, which is kind of like just such a funny paradox if you really think about it. But I think chaos is just kind of here to remind you that even if it doesn't look like anything that you thought it was going to look like or feel how you thought it would, it doesn't mean that it's not going to be effective for you and the changes that are trying to take place. And I think with chaos, it's more of just, again, connecting to yourself intuitively, having that compassion for yourself, and paying attention to things. Now, next to that, we have happy, happy, which this card to me always like talks about really allowing yourself that joy, that simplicity of just kind of stepping out, understanding that you have the key, that key to the new life, that key to being able to celebrate and enjoy yourself. So I know temperatures are warming up, things are shifting, spring has really like started to take real root. We're seeing things, grow, and we're seeing this like sense of like kind of revving up for some of the more busier times for a lot of us, which is usually summer and fall, where we're like, oh, I'm going to do all these things, blah, blah, blah. And so I think it's very much about giving yourself that space to also celebrate, to have a little bit of fun, to do things that actually speak to you in your heart and what makes you actually happy. And I think with like being so focused on everything else going on around you, maybe it's kind of saying like, okay, we have to kind of move into this energy. We have to like allow ourselves to also physically have the things that we want. And maybe that's why you've been feeling a little bit disconnected and unhappy and kind of like, oh, well, all I do is work, or all I do is what everybody else expects of me. And now that these changes are really taking root, it's an opportunity for you to really celebrate what you have, what you want, really trusting spirit, opening yourself up to the possibilities that you're not doing these things by yourself, and you don't always have to just solely rely on yourself. So I'm going to move on to, I think we're going to do this one. So I release the need to prove myself to others. I think that this goes very much with like the happy, happy card, in the sense that it's trying to tell you to allow yourself to really step fully into who you are, what you want. Stop trying to maybe live your life according to what you think other people expect of you, and to really stop defending yourself to others or explaining yourself to others. I think that's a big thing that a lot of people tend to do, or they feel invalidated by comments or by opinions that other people may have. And so sometimes this is just a reminder that you release that need to prove yourself to others, that you don't have to sit here and be like, well, it's actually this, or, oh, I'm this way because of this, and blah, blah, blah. And I know it's so easy for us to fall into wanting to have these labels and compartmentalize different things so that maybe it gives people a little bit of like a clue as to who we are and what we have going on. But I think it's more of just that reminder of allowing yourself to really be happy without having to explain yourself to somebody else or prove yourself to others. Now, when I think of this, it goes very well with this card. With when we shift our energy from fear to love, we find our way. And that's the thing with chaos, right? Sometimes we just don't really know what is happening. And some of us will want to like burrow down into that energy of like, let me at least be the grounding force here, without recognizing that chaos is such a big part of being a person and existing on this plane. And I think that this is more of just shifting our energy, our personal energy, from being afraid of those changes and, questioning ourselves or doubting ourselves so much, and allowing it to be a place where we kind of move into that love of just like, I'm just happy to be here. I'm just happy to exist. I can continuously find my way. We're not going to feel so disrupted or so afraid of what is trying to kind of happen for us, even if we don't always like what the tower may bring. So next to that, we have balance. So I think that this is just kind of telling you like maybe you've been doing too much of one thing, and there's these two like things within yourself that are just not really in balance. And so maybe by listening to this lesson of like, you need to kind of go within, you need to kind of seek your own wisdom out, you need to kind of reconnect to your intuition as these things happen, and not be so disrupted that you lack balance. And maybe right now you're just not in that balance with yourself. And maybe this is an opportunity to bring a lot of different things in your life back into balance. And maybe it's an opportunity for you to look at, okay, I've been living my life this way. It hasn't really been moving the way that I need it. So what do I need to do, or what do I need to add in order for me to have that balance back into my life? And I think that this is just a beautiful reminder that maybe you've been too much in your head, you need to kind of lean back into the intuitive, honoring your cycles, knowing that balance is something that we're constantly having to readjust for. It's not you just one and done. And it's going to be something that you have to continuously do and kind of share within yourself so that you can move out of certain patterns or be able to kind of see some progression and not feel so stuck and not feel so like discontent that things maybe have not been the way that you thought they were going to. And finally, we have, and I'm probably going to mispronounce this is Uzum or humor. So I feel like this is almost saying, again, it's very much like, let yourself be happy. Let yourself have a little bit of fun. Let yourself joke around a little bit, even if it feels like it's just a little bit of chaos. It's very much about just enjoying yourself, finding the things that maybe bring like a little bit more humor into your life. I know for me personally, it's been a little bit stressful. And so I have felt like I've just been like in a perma bad mood. And I think with this is just a reminder of maybe seeking things out that like make you laugh, seeking things out that like just bring up your humor in the sense of bringing up that sense of joy, bringing up your level of happiness, of really like finding the humor in the things that maybe don't work out the way that you thought they were going to, or finding the humor in, oh man, I'm at this age and I'm still so inexperienced in so many things, or oh, it's so funny whenever I take a step back and kind of look at how much I don't listen to my intuition because I'm guilty. So I totally get it. And I think that this is just maybe saying like you need to find a way to just have a little bit more fun, start trusting yourself a little bit more, and not take everything so serious. Like have a little bit of fun, enjoy yourself, and again, release the need to prove yourself to other people and shift your energy from fear to love. So I hope that made sense. I want to say thank you so much for joining me. Have a good one. Stay safe, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye. All right. Hello, pile number 3. Thank you so much for joining me. Let's see what your message is today and what the cards have to say for you. I already have everything shuffled. I decided to use some mini decks today to see what we have. So we have the Star reversed, the 10 of Cups, the High Priestess, the Knight of Pentacles reversed, and the 2 of Wands reversed. Forget how little the cards are. All right. Hopefully I don't get in trouble because you can see some stuff here. That's so funny. I keep pulling like fiery cards. So obviously got some stuff going on with that. A lot of growth and fire. How funny. Isn't there the whole thing about growth from like forest fires and things like that? Like having to have a fire for there to be like new growth. So I'm deeply rooted. And oh my God, that's so funny. I just pulled that for the other one. I don't know if I want this one. Maybe we'll put it here because I just pulled it for the other reading. Okay, that feels more like what I want. It's funny, I'm seeing a lot more like earthy browns, reds, kind of like a more earthy kind of element with the energies here. So maybe this is more root chakra stuff. I didn't do it for the other, for pile 2, so sorry. So maybe more structural things with life and your existence. So maybe I'll just leave this here. I don't know if I want to read this one, so we'll see, because I just got it. I just pulled it for the other one. So I kind of feel like that'd be a little repetitive, but I don't know if you guys watch all of the video all the way through or just watch your reading and then call it a day. All right, so let's start with the cards I pulled. We're going to do it like this. So the very first one we have is the Star reverse, which to me can just say that maybe you are questioning your sense of faith. Maybe you've been questioning what you believe in. Maybe it's been a little bit challenging. in the sense of trying to find your direction or that reconnection to yourself. Or maybe you just feel a little bit disrupted as far as like there's a little bit of the sense of things didn't really go the way that I thought they were going to. And so that crumbling of the previous kind of energy has maybe disrupted you so much that it's hard for you to kind of find your sense of faith and find your sense of hope as far as like what it is that you want moving forward. So there is a little bit of this kind of internalized fear that I think is kind of happening with the energy of this card that's kind of holding you back, even though the card right next to it is the 10 of Cups, which is one of the happiest, if not one of the most auspicious kind of cards that you can receive from the minors. That really talks about happiness in all areas of your life. This is very much about, really receiving the fruits of your labor in the sense of the emotional kind of happiness that comes where everybody is just celebrating you, where you feel very grounded and centered and focused on what it is that you want and what it is that you need. So the other thing with this energy is that I feel like it's very much kind of a reminder that what you're focusing on is coming together. Even if right now maybe you've lost a little bit of hope or do not see some progression the way that you would like to see that progression. Now next to that we have the High Priestess, which to me is definitely a card of like connecting to your intuition, really moving with the emotionality of things happening here. This is again kind of like divine, feminine, intuitive energy in the sense of really understanding that your feelings, what you have kind of going on, all of that really matters. And so there is a little bit of this sense of having to reconnect a little bit more to that energy and paying attention to what you have going on regarding those things. So I think the biggest thing with this is that it's almost saying that right now there may be a lot of emotions that are running very high, and maybe it feels a little bit confusing to focus on this kind of energy of like maybe wanting to trust your intuition a little bit more, especially if you've been feeling a little bit disconnected with that star reversed, kind of showing you that there's been a lack of faith and connection in different ways. So we move on to the Knight of Pentacles reversed. I think that this is just kind of saying that maybe there's something here that is lacking some movement, lacking some momentum. There's something that maybe energetically is not really establishing itself the way that you thought it was going to. Maybe you haven't really received the communication that you thought you would regarding something, whether it's a new job, a career, physical health, things like that. It just kind of feels like there's some sort of stagnation, a lack of momentum and movement in ways that maybe feel a little bit disconnected or disjointed. And so the Knights to me are very much about learning how to trust yourself, learning how to connect to, what it is that you're willing to fight for. And so right now, maybe there's a little bit of this internalization, especially when we think of like the star reversed, of trying to find our sense of hope, trying to reestablish what it is that we believe in, while also trying to be happy for the things that have come together, and really learning to kind of move back into trusting our intuition a little bit more, which maybe we haven't been so much. And so that's why with the Knight of Pentacles reverse, it's feeling a little bit like inverted, a little bit disjointed. And the other thing is, if we look at the Two of Wands reverse, I think it's very much saying that right now, this is a time for us to try to internalize what it is that we want, to start looking at the choices that we've been making. Wands to me are like passion and drive and momentum and travel and movement. And so maybe we just haven't really been seeing that. And especially with the Knight of Pentacles reverse, I feel like maybe there was like an opportunity that you were like, oh, I'm going to like be able to get out into the world and do something I want to do. And now you're coming to the realization that maybe intuitively it's not what you want or what it is that you actually truly need. So I think with the Two of Wands reversed, it's more of saying like, this is a time to maybe internalize some of these things and take some time out to make better choices, to bring a little bit more balance in different ways, because there's something that maybe is trying to shift at the current moment, but we're just not clearly seeing it the way that we should. And so there is a little bit of maybe a hesitation to commit to something in some way. And so that is something that maybe is coming up at the current moment. Now, if we start moving on to the actual oracle cards I pulled, the very first one is the inspiration, which is I allow inspiration to fill me so I can inspire others. And I think with this goes very well with this fire card, as well as this Two of Wands reverse. Even if it doesn't feel like that, or even with the star reversed, I think that it's more of just looking at what is inspiring you within, finding that sense of hope again within yourself, of allowing that fire to kind of be lit within you first. And I think that this is more of just recognizing that maybe for too long you've kind of been a little bit disjointed with who you are, what you want, what you need. And I think that this is maybe a reminder for you to reconnect a little bit more to that, to find a better balance between what inspires you in your day-to-day life and what's kind of going on in the world around you. Now, fire, this can either be a reminder of the actual element of fire, which is passion, drive, aggression. It can be creativity. It can be momentum. It can be like that sense of just like having a fire lit under you, of just like, I am just like so in it. And maybe you've been a little disconnected from your fire, and maybe things just don't feel that warm for you in a lot of ways too. When I think of fire, I think of like, if we need it to live, right? And it's how many of us like, heat our spaces, how we eat. We need that warmth. And so I think fire is also the divine creative kind of energy that allows us to show up in the world, to inspire ourselves and to inspire others. And I think fire here is kind of saying like, you need to kind of light that fire back up within yourself. And maybe you've been a little disconnected from what inspires you or what feels good for you, just because it's so easy. It's so easy not to get caught up in like what everybody else expects of us. And I think with the star reverse and even the Knight of Pentacles reverse is that maybe right now you're like, I'm too focused on what I need to be doing versus like really finding that inspiration. Or maybe it's hard because intuitively I haven't really had what I need at the current moment. And so I think fire is maybe just a reminder to take some time out to find the joy, to find the warmth, to connect to those energies a little bit more so that you feel more balanced, so that you can feel a little bit of the sense of connection again to what you have going on. Now, underneath that, we have growth, and I love the representation on this card for growth. I think it's very much about understanding that it takes time. It's not going to be something that happens overnight. It is something that takes a lot of patience, a lot of giving it space, giving it time to really be what it needs to be. And I think that growth also maybe is a reminder for you to kind of take a step back into what is it that you're actually trying to grow here? Are you nurturing it? Are you taking care of it? Are you giving it the space that it needs in order for it to really thrive the way that it needs to? And I think by looking at the lesson of inspiration and also fire is that it's more of just like this, like, okay, what are we doing? What are we focusing on? Are we giving ourselves that grace to understand that sometimes the growth that we're doing is beneath the surface? We don't always really see it until we're much further along. And even looking at like the root system of like a tree, it's usually double in size what we see above ground. And we have to be very mindful of that growth process that happens where maybe we don't always recognize the growth that's happening or really see how much growth is happening and why we feel so drained and why it's so hard to find a sense of inspiration is because we need to kind of have the nutrition necessary for that growth to continue. And so I think that growth is also a reminder for you to look at what is feeding you and what is keeping you connected to who you are, what you want, what you need. And if we move on to the next card, to be fair, I think that this is almost saying like you need to start weighing some things. Find that balance between what is inspiring you, how you're inspiring others, what's driving your passion, what's driving who you are, what you need, the growth that you're doing, who you've been, who you're becoming. And I think that this is more of just finding that wisdom and really recognizing that maybe you've been trying to do too many things that are out of sync with who you are, or maybe no longer make sense for what you're trying to do with your life. And maybe this is an opportunity to kind of take a risk that feels more aligned with you. And maybe right now it may feel, a little bit scary, but maybe this is what you need in order to bring things back into balance, is to ask for help, to not feel like you are disconnected and disjointed from what it is that you want. And I think it's interesting that we have this I am enough card and I do enough, because if we look at just the energy of growth, it is kind of a reminder of that. But I think it's also a call to this inspiration card where, you're like, I am allowing inspiration to fill me so I can inspire others. And it's very much about recognizing that you are enough and that you are doing enough to kind of help other people and to show up for them the ways that they may need, and also giving yourself and honoring who you are and what it is that you need. Now, I know I said I wasn't going to read this one, but I do feel like it goes very well with I release the need to prove myself to others. I think that's another thing here, is that maybe you feel like you have to validate yourself externally to others, or have them understand what it is that you're trying to do, instead of, taking that space for yourself and recognizing that you're not always going to make everyone happy. And not everyone is going to understand what it is that you're doing and why you're showing up the way that you are. So I think that maybe that's why that card came out too, because it also came out with the previous pile. And then we also have this I'm deeply rooted, which I think goes very well with this growth card as well, because I think it's a reminder that all of the growth that you've been doing is rooting you. It's allowing you to kind of co-create what it is that you need. And to maybe with this Knight of Pentacles reverse, is that maybe right now you're kind of like, I've been so focused on this growth that it makes it hard for me to see what is actually shifting, what is actually changing, what it is that I need to do. And so it can be a little bit challenging for you to kind of find that choice, that balance in your experiences right now. I think it also almost like mirrors this kind of energy of the fire, like above, as above, so below kind of thing, where it's like, let that creative energy flow through you, but then recognize that it's coming from a space that is very much within yourself, that really wants to be expressed in other ways. And so maybe just allowing yourself to just feel rooted in your experiences and what you have going on. Now, finally, I have Lakshmi, which is all about fortune. She's the goddess of, just abundance and just like the power of fortune. Because fortune to me is not just like money and fame and good things happening. I think it's very much a sort of energy of really tuning into the divinity of showing up authentically as yourself. And I think that she's very much here to kind of encourage you to show up in that. And I think it's beautiful. It goes very much with all the rest of the colors. It's like earthy golden yellows and oranges and reds, where it's saying, okay, you have to really be in like those lower root chakra energies of really being grounded and rooted in yourself and recognizing who you are, what you need, what's going on, and start bringing that balance again into all areas of your life so that this growth can continue, so that you can release the need to kind of prove who you are to others, and recognizing that fortune is you really knowing that you are enough and that you are doing enough. So I think that she's here to kind of invite the conversation of how fortunate you are, of opening yourself up to the potential of not feeling like it's just you having to do everything by yourself. So if I look at everything overall, I think that there's a lot of transition happening for you that maybe has not felt very comfortable in some ways. But I think if anything, it's allowing you to reestablish your sense of faith. You're starting to see things really start working out in your favor. So this would be a great time to maybe look at, manifestation magic and really calling in that kind of energy of like really recognizing your power and bringing things back into balance instead of being so focused on what hasn't worked or how challenging it's been for you to get things to work. Because I think that now they're saying that momentum is coming. It's just going to take a little bit of time, and you have to just trust. And the more that you kind of look within and reflect, the easier it'll be for this intuitive kind of work to really come to life for you. So I hope that that made sense, Pile 3. Thank you so much for joining me. I really appreciate you watching. And if you enjoyed it or have any questions, comment down below. Let me know what you think. Have a good one. Take care. Stay safe. And as always, make good choices. Bye.